It shows when the EU is able to impose sanctions on individual African countries, and the rest can only look on in impotent rage. It shows when a bomb in Kampala leads to a warning for all travel to East and Central Africa, and we're expected to accept that a terrorist attack in Belgium has no effect on France or Netherlands or Luxembourg. It is quite likely that for many Europeans today, the image that is raised in their minds at the mention of Africa and Africans is a problem of border and immigration control in the EU. We in Ghana, and indeed in Africa, consider this phenomenon more of a problem for us than for Europe. It is a reflection of our failure. The conditions in our countries should be such that a young person will think of subjecting himself or herself to the dangers and indignities of the perilous journeys to get to Europe. We in Africa, the governments and the peoples, owe it to ourselves, to our young people in particular, to make sure that nobody has to undertake such journeys. There's a lot we have to do to develop our countries and improve the conditions to make them attractive as places to stay and not flee. But maybe there's something you in the EU might also do to contribute to finding a solution to the problem. I would like to suggest that a fairer trading system between Europe and Africa that will lead to a faster development rate in Africa might offer a less painful route than any aid. That will stimulate growth in Africa and lead to the creation of more jobs. Whatever money that Europe might lose from a change in the present arrangement will not come anywhere near what Europe currently spends to keep out unwanted would-be immigrants. Migration, however, is only one issue of importance between Europe and Africa. Trade, energy, climate change, the illicit outflows of money from Africa to Europe, human and drug trafficking, transnational cyber crimes, democratic governance and human rights are among the joint concerns for the two continents bound together by history, culture, and geography. A very important plank for our mutual prosperity would be the EU's strong support to the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA. The AFCFTA links 54 markets, covering 1.2 billion people, with a combined GDP of $3 trillion United States dollars, into a single market. It is the world's largest free trade area outside the World Trade Organization itself. By 2050, it will cover an estimated 2.5 billion people and have over a quarter of the world's working-age population. Imagine the business and investment opportunities offered by the infrastructure required to link these markets more effectively. And imagine the business opportunities that this huge market would offer for manufacturing and service firms from European countries that could establish production facilities in Africa to serve the African markets. And with the accelerated growth that will result from all of these, the market opportunities for exporters from European countries could be truly amazing. A well-developed and prosperous Africa would be good, not just for us in Africa, but would benefit Europe as well. History has taught us that a rich trading partner operating within a fair trading system brings prosperity to both sides, far more than the exploitation of a poor partner. As it becomes clearer to all of us, the problems that face the world are more likely to be quickly resolved when we are all prosperous than when half the world is immersed in poverty. The problems of the environment, and climate change in particular, can only be properly addressed when we're able to deal with poverty. A hungry, homeless, jobless person has not got much at stake in the battle we want to fight for the survival of the planet. It is also not likely that the underdeveloped part of the world will want to serve as the forest reserve or museum to save the planet for the developed, prosperous world. I happen to believe that no one needs to be poor for others to be rich. We're fully committed to the necessity to act to save the planet from climate degradation. Indeed, our continent, for instance, the example of Lake Chad, has been the hardest hit from the adverse effects of climate change. We believe, however, that asking Africa to abandon forthwith the exploitation of her abundant natural resources is to condemn Africa to perpetual poverty. The developed world is responsible for 76% of global carbon emissions, whilst Africa is responsible for 4%. There's therefore the obvious need for a balance between the social, economic, and environmental imperatives of climate action if equitable global development is to be achieved. There is enough on our planet to enable all of us to be prosperous in a sustainable world. We in Ghana continue to benefit from our partnership with the EU on the sustainable development of our cocoa industry and the implementation of the Green Ghana project, which seeks to plant in Ghana 10 million trees every year. Mr. President, our two continents do not seem to be able to do without one another. So what can we do to bring about a closer relationship that deals with the centuries of distrust? Taking a look through the paperwork, it is obvious that it is not for want of effort that there is not a formal document that spells out relations between AU and EU. The joint AU-EU strategy document, for example, has gone through a lot of work on both sides and seems to have simply gone into hibernation. It is worth recalling that it was set up as a move from a donor-recipient relationship to one of equals. However, the intended paradigm shift to alter fundamentally European and African relations has not really taken place, and it is obvious that both sides need to come back to the table and give the document a new breath of fresh air to bring it back into life. We would, in the process, identify the sticky points that have been holding an agreement back. Just as attachment to democratic values is a basic prerequisite for membership of the European Union, so is commitment to democratic principles a necessary condition for membership of the African Union. The convergence of views on democratic governance enables a more focused discussion whenever there appears to be divergence or disagreements on governance on either side. It provides a historic opportunity to reinforce the positive relations between our two continents, which the joint AU-EU strategy should stress. Ghana, for her part, is proudly a nation governed by the principles of democratic accountability, respect for individual liberties and human rights, and the rule of law, an aspiring modern nation. She is acknowledged as a beacon of democracy and stability in Africa, which has witnessed 8 general elections, 5 presidential transitions, and 3 peaceful transfers of power from one party to the other through the ballot box in the 28-year period of the Fourth Republic. Long may the Fourth Republic endure. At the core of the strategy is the understanding the relations between the two continents must be premised on equal participation and representation. For the first time, this strategy put both partners on an equal footing and raised expectations that members of the African Union would not just be the recipients of pre-packaged assistance from the European Union, but would sit side by side with the EU at the decision-making table. If this should materialize, it will spell a true transformation of relations between our two peoples, and it will be a pity if we do not seize the opportunity to chart such a new path. In trying to chart this new path, we cannot, however, underestimate the enormity of the history we have to overcome. Our elders in Ghana say that if you do not know where you're coming from, you're not likely to know where you want to go to either. Trade relations between Africa and Europe have evolved through history under the influence of strategies and policies that were initially imposed on Africa by Europe, then developed for Africa by Europe, and are now being made in collaboration with Africa. These relations take their form and content from mechanisms originally established during colonization that were maintained until independence. It is clear that a new paradigm has to be defined, which will be dependent on the structural transformation of African economies from raw material producing and exporting economies to value-adding, industrializing economies. This will enable Africans trade at the high end of the global value chain, dealing in products we make and grow. Out of this, a robust trading system between Europe and Africa will be created, which will generate mutual prosperity for the peoples of the two continents. It is my personal expectation and hope that the February AU-EU summit would address concrete matters, such as focusing the support of the AU for the AU on growth-enhancing interventions, especially on infrastructure and skills development, simplifying EU processes, particularly for infrastructure projects, establishing a joint AU-EU technical committee to design procedures for processing infrastructural projects in Africa, including for public-private projects, defining effective means to stop the illicit flows of substantial monies from Africa to Europe, and building strategic partnerships hinged on Africa's growth and transformation. This will be a win-win for African countries and European countries. The maintenance of peace and security, Mr. President, remains a critical challenge in Africa. Although the magnitude of the challenge varies from state to state, countries on the continent are generally grappling with extraordinary sources of threats that undermine both state and human security. In the Sahel region of West Africa, for example, the terrorist and jihadist menace and presence, which have provoked so much violence and instability in the area, are directly linked to the disintegration of Libya. We believe that the sooner Libya can be returned to normalcy, the better it would be for the stability of West Africa. And Europe has a big role to play in that, having regard to Europe's own role in Libya's process of disintegration. Sustained concerted efforts to support the present peace efforts in Libya and the prospective elections there should be major items on EU's foreign policy agenda. On behalf of the government and people of Ghana, I want to thank members of the European Union for the support offered to Ghana's recent successful candidate for a non-permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council for the years 2022-2023. Ghana received the highest number of votes on the day, which could not have been possible without the active support of the EU. One of Ghana's major considerations will be to make sure that Africa's voice is heard loud and clear in the deliberations of the Security Council, both on matters affecting the continent and on global issues. An important position that Ghana will advance on the Council is that, having regard to the conflicts on the continent, now is not the time for the Security Council to reduce its peacekeeping mandates on the African continent. On the contrary, it should look to increasing them. The international community must not be caught in a penny-wise, pound-foolish scenario. Mr. President, I dare not come to this Parliament and omit to talk about one reality that could serve us both in trying to bring the peoples of Africa and Europe together for our common good. There does exist in Europe a sizable community of the African diaspora. These are people who have left Africa physically and are living in the various countries of Europe, but who retain strong emotional links with the continent. They often have local content knowledge that is useful to ease difficulties if their expertise is brought in quickly. Until recently, diaspora groups and organizations have operated in an informal and exclusive manner. Now, thanks to inexpensive transportation and rapid communication, they're able to exert far greater influence on their lands than ever before. This advantage enables diaspora communities to build up vast transnational networks, linking globalization to the local conditions of their respective countries of origin. They are a ready source of expertise that we can all use to speed up this conversation between Africa and Europe. There is a matter of national importance that I would put before this Parliament. In June 2021, the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, plenary, approved after requisite investigation the removal of Ghana from the list of jurisdictions subject to enhanced supervision, i.e. the so-called grey list. EU procedures indicate that within 30 days of such a finding by FATF, the formal processes for the delisting of the affected country should be completed. This requires a delegated act proposed by the Commission to the Parliament for its approval. 6 months later, this has not happened in the case of Ghana. I would appeal to the honourable members of this Parliament to see to it that the formal process for the delisting of Ghana from the grey list be completed as soon as possible. Mr. President, I've tried to have a frank and unadorned conversation with this famous House. I believe you have invited me precisely for that purpose, and I hope that several of the observations I have made will provide fodder for us at the forthcoming AU-EU summit in Brussels in February next year, which must succeed and put Europe-Africa relations on a higher pedestal. Ours is a long, sometimes tortuous journey. There's a lot of heartache and joy behind the relationship. There has to be. There are not many relationships in this world that have a longer tenure. It is up to us in this generation to move on from the pain of our ancestors and the privileges of your ancestors and create a happier and mutually respectful relationship between Africa and Europe. The leaps of faith on both sides will be difficult, but eminently doable. The positive aspects of the relationship can be a tremendous force for good in the world. Together we can, and we should make it. I thank you for your attention.